A Marine thought he left his past behind until his canine froze at the garage door. Seconds later, a bleeding woman collapsed into his arms, and the name she whispered shattered him. 17 years of silence, broken in one night. She didn't get lost. She knew exactly where to find him. She just never dared to come back. Until tonight. Because whatever was waiting for her out there was worse than facing the son she left behind. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. The wind tore through Duluth like a living thing, dragging snow across empty streets and slamming it against the thin metal walls of a forgotten garage at the edge of town. Inside, Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Brooks had built a life that required no one else. A life measured in routine, silence, and the steady comfort of things that could be fixed. At 44, Daniel still carried the presence of a Marine, tall, broad-shouldered, his strength functional rather than showy, his movements controlled with the kind of discipline that never faded. His face was carved with hard lines, a sharp jaw, short dark hair touched with gray, a faint scar cutting through his right eyebrow, and eyes that had seen too much and chosen to feel less. People in town described him as dependable but distant, the kind of man who would help you without asking questions and leave before you could ask him any. That distance wasn't personality, it was choice, built slowly after a decision 17 years ago that he had never corrected, never revisited, and never forgiven himself for. Beside him lay Rex, a 5-year-old German Shepherd canine with rich amber-toned fur and a powerful, alert build, his body relaxed but never careless. Rex had served alongside Daniel in combat, trained to detect threats, track movement, and react faster than human instinct allowed, and unlike most dogs, he didn't react without reason. His loyalty was absolute, forged in places where hesitation meant death, and his calm was the kind that only came from experience. Daniel trusted Rex more than he trusted people, and that trust had never once been broken. The garage hummed with quiet life, the faint tick of cooling metal, the distant whistle of wind, and Daniel focused on the engine in front of him, his hands moving slowly, methodically, because machines made sense. Machines didn't walk away. Machines didn't judge. Machines didn't remember who you used to be. Rex growled. It was low at first, almost buried under the sound of the wind, but Daniel heard it instantly. He didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. His body reacted before his mind did, years of training snapping into place as he turned toward the open garage door. Rex was already on his feet, body rigid, ears forward, eyes locked into the darkness beyond the light. Daniel set the wrench down carefully and stepped forward, his boots echoing against the concrete, his posture shifting from mechanic to Marine without effort. The cold air hit him sharply as he reached the threshold, and for a moment there was nothing, just snow, wind, and empty space. Then he saw it. A shape on the ground, low and unmoving, something that didn't belong. Daniel dropped to one knee immediately, his hand reaching out, brushing against fabric, wet. He pulled back instinctively, seeing the dark stain across his fingers. Blood. Hey, stay with me, he said quickly, his voice steady even as something inside him tightened. The figure stirred weakly beneath his touch. It was a woman, elderly, thin, her gray hair tangled and soaked with blood, her face bruised and swollen, one eye completely shut. The injuries weren't just from tonight. Daniel could see it immediately, the layering of damage, the kind that came from repeated violence. His jaw tightened as he slid an arm beneath her shoulders, stabilizing her carefully, his movements precise, controlled. You're okay, I got you, stay with me. Her hand moved slowly, trembling as if even lifting it cost her everything. It searched blindly for something to hold on to, something real, until it found his wrist. Her grip tightened with surprising strength, and then she spoke. Daniel. The sound hit him harder than any explosion ever had. Daniel froze. His breath caught as something deep inside him cracked open, something he had buried so far down he had convinced himself it no longer existed. That voice, faint, broken, but unmistakable. No, he whispered, shaking his head as if denial could change what he was seeing. He shifted her into the light, forcing himself to look at her face, really look this time. Past the blood, past the swelling, past the years he had refused to remember. Recognition came slowly, painfully, like a wound reopening after years of scar tissue. A line of her face, the shape of her eyes, the memory of someone he had once known better than anyone. Mom? For a brief second, her eye opened, just enough to meet his. There was recognition there, relief, like she had been holding on for this moment alone. Then her grip loosened, her body went limp. "No, no, stay with me." Daniel pulled her closer, pressing his hand against the wound on her head, trying to stop the bleeding, trying to hold her here as his hands began to shake. His hands, the same hands that had stayed steady in firefights, steady under pressure, steady when everything else collapsed, were shaking now because of her. 17 years of silence crashed into him all at once, into the weight of her body, into the realization that she had found him. He grabbed his phone, dialing with fingers that didn't feel steady anymore, his voice turning automatic as he gave the address, described her injuries, answered questions without thinking. But his eyes never left her face. "You knew where I was," he murmured, barely aware he was speaking. "All this time, you knew." A memory slammed into him, her standing in the doorway years ago, telling him she couldn't accept the life he had chosen, telling him he was becoming someone she didn't recognize. And him, young, angry, too proud to bend, walking away without looking back. "If you leave, don't come back." He had listened. 17 years, not a single call, not a single visit. And now she was here, bleeding in his arms because she had nowhere else to go. Rex growled again, louder this time, sharper. Daniel looked up instantly, his instincts snapping back into place as his eyes scanned the darkness beyond the garage. For a split second, he saw it, a shadow shifting just outside the reach of the light, too controlled to be the wind, too deliberate to be nothing. Someone had been there, watching, then gone. The distant wail of sirens cut through the night, growing louder, but Daniel didn't relax. His grip tightened around her, protective, desperate, his voice dropping low, steady again but heavier now, carrying something that hadn't been there before. "I'm here now. I'm not letting you go." But his eyes stayed on the darkness, because deep down he already knew this wasn't random. She hadn't just collapsed here, she had come to him. And whatever had done this to her wasn't finished yet. The hospital corridor felt colder than any winter night Daniel Brooks had endured, a sterile chill that sank past skin and into bone, and he stood there unmoving, shoulders squared but heavy, as if the weight of 17 years had finally found him. Rex pressed close to his leg, the 5-year-old German Shepherd's amber eyes scanning every movement with trained precision, yet his body stayed tense, sensing something wrong not in the environment, but in the man he trusted above all else. Daniel's hand rested unconsciously on the dog's neck, fingers tightening slightly in rhythm with his breathing, grounding himself as the truth began to unfold piece by piece, each fragment cutting deeper than the last. He had survived war zones, explosions, loss, but nothing prepared him for the quiet, suffocating realization that his mother had been suffering while he chose not to look back. Through the glass panel, Helen Brooks lay motionless beneath a network of tubes and wires, her frail body swallowed by the hospital bed, her face swollen, bruised, barely recognizable as the woman who once stood unshaken in the face of hardship. She had never been physically imposing, but there had always been a strength in her presence, a calm resilience, the kind that made people feel safe just by standing near her, her silver-threaded hair usually tied loosely at the back, her eyes always steady, always certain. Now those same eyes were closed, her breathing forced through machines, and Daniel felt something inside his chest twist violently, a mix of anger, regret, and something far more dangerous because it came too late. "Mr. Brooks?" Daniel turned slowly, his expression hardened, but his eyes betrayed the storm building beneath the surface. Dr. Richard Halpern stepped forward, a tall, narrow man in his late 50s, his posture slightly hunched from years spent leaning over patients, his face lined with the kind of fatigue that came from carrying too many outcomes that didn't end well. His voice was calm, but not soft. "I'm going to be direct," the doctor said. "Your mother's injuries are not recent. Some of the fractures show signs of healing and being broken again. There are bruising patterns consistent with restraint and control." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Control?" "Yes," Halpern replied. "She wasn't just attacked, she was kept." That word landed differently. Kept. Daniel felt his pulse slow instead of spike, his body shifting into something colder, more focused, the same controlled state he had learned in combat. But this wasn't war, and that made it worse. "Who did this?" he asked. Before the doctor could answer, a familiar voice cut in. "Logan Pierce." Daniel turned sharply. Detective Hensley stood in the doorway again, his expression unchanged, but his eyes more serious now, as if the situation had crossed a line even he recognized. "We've confirmed it," Hensley continued. "Your mother has been living with him in Des Moines for years. Neighbors reported disturbances, but no one pushed it. No one wanted to get involved." Daniel let out a slow breath, his gaze drifting back to the glass, locking onto his mother's still form. "She chose to stay?" Hensley shook his head slightly. "That's not how this works. Not at that level. Not when fear gets involved." Daniel didn't respond, because deep down, he knew something else was true. She had chosen once. A knock on the doorframe broke the moment. "Mind if I come in?" Daniel turned. The man standing there looked like trouble that had learned to behave, but not completely. Mid-40s, tall and lean, with sharp cheekbones and a faint scar running along the side of his jaw, his dark hair cut short but uneven like he did it himself, his leather jacket worn and cracked from years of use. His eyes were the most telling part, dark, restless, carrying the weight of things he didn't say out loud. "Victor Kane," he said. "I knew Logan." Daniel studied him carefully, every instinct measuring, assessing. Victor wasn't clean, but he wasn't empty either. There was something human still left in him, and that made him useful. "You ride with him?" Daniel asked. "Used to," Victor replied. "Not anymore." Daniel stepped closer. "Then start talking." Victor exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck like someone replaying choices he couldn't undo. "When your mom took him in, Logan wasn't like this. He was messed up, yeah, quiet, angry, carrying things he couldn't put down, but he was trying. She gave him structure, routine, something stable. For a while, it worked." Daniel didn't interrupt, but his eyes sharpened. Victor continued. "He'd fix bikes, take odd jobs, barely spoke unless spoken to. Your mom, she had a way of calming people down. Not controlling them, just grounding them, like she did with him." Daniel's throat tightened slightly. "That sounds like her." Victor nodded. "Yeah, but then something changed." Daniel already knew. "The will," he said. Victor gave a small, bitter smile. "Yeah, he found out she wasn't leaving him anything. Everything was going to you." The words hit differently now. Daniel looked away, jaw tightening again, because even after everything, that detail still carried weight. A reminder that no matter how far he walked, he had never truly been replaced. "He took it personally," Victor continued. "Started drinking heavier, got paranoid, said she was choosing you again, even after you left. That messed him up more than anything." Daniel's breathing slowed, deeper now. "What did he do?" Victor hesitated. "At first, yelling, breaking things. Then it got worse. He stopped letting her leave the house alone, took her phone, said it was for her own good." Daniel's fists tightened. "And you did nothing." Victor met his eyes, unflinching. "I tried once." Daniel waited. "He put me in the hospital for a week," Victor said. "After that, I stayed out of it." Silence settled between them. Daniel nodded once, not in agreement, but in understanding. Logan wasn't just violent. He was controlled chaos. "Where is he now?" Daniel asked. Victor shook his head. "Gone. But he's predictable when he runs." Daniel stepped closer. "Explain." Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. "There's an old industrial yard outside Des Moines, near the river, abandoned. That's where he goes when things get bad. Somewhere isolated. Somewhere he thinks no one will find him." Daniel didn't hesitate. "I'm going there." Hensley stepped forward immediately. "You don't do that without us." Daniel turned, his gaze steady, cold. "You'll be too slow." "That's not your call," Hensley replied. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "He did this to my mother." Rex stood up beside him, posture alert, silent but ready. Victor watched both of them, then gave a slow nod. "Then you're not going alone." Daniel paused for a second, just long enough to decide. Then he nodded. "Fine." Because this wasn't just about finding Logan anymore. This was about the past he walked away from, the choice his mother made, and the price she paid for it. The night air in Des Moines carried a damp, metallic cold, the kind that clung to the skin and refused to leave. And Daniel Brooks stood in front of the house without moving, his broad frame still, shoulders squared under a worn marine jacket that had seen too many winters and too many battles. The property looked ordinary from a distance, a single-story home with peeling white paint and a sagging porch. But something about it felt wrong, like silence stretched too tight, like a place where sound itself had learned to stay quiet. Rex stood beside him, muscles coiled beneath his thick amber coat, ears forward, nostrils flaring as he processed the air with trained precision, every instinct telling him this was not just a location, it was a memory soaked into the ground. Daniel didn't need anyone to tell him this was where it happened. He could feel it, heavy and suffocating, pressing against his chest like a weight he couldn't push away. Victor Kane leaned against the side of the truck, arms crossed, watching the house with narrowed eyes, his usual restless energy replaced by something more cautious, more restrained, as if even he understood this wasn't a place to approach carelessly. Detective Hensley stood a few feet away, speaking quietly into his radio, coordinating backup that Daniel already knew would arrive too late to matter. The law moved in steps. Daniel moved in decisions. He stepped forward without waiting, boots crunching lightly on the gravel path, Rex immediately shifting with him, body low and alert, moving in silent synchronization the way only a trained K9 could. "Daniel," Hensley called out. Daniel didn't stop. "You want to wait for a warrant?" Daniel reached the door, his hand hovering over the handle for a fraction of a second. "He lost that right," he said quietly. The door wasn't locked. That alone told him everything. He pushed it open. The smell hit first. Stale alcohol, damp wood, something rotten beneath it all, a scent that clung to the walls like it had nowhere else to go. The living room was a mess of broken furniture and empty bottles, glass crunching under his boots as he stepped inside, eyes scanning automatically, mapping exits, threats, movement patterns that no longer mattered because whoever had done this was gone. Rex moved ahead of him, nose close to the ground, then lifting, then tracking again, his breathing steady but sharper now, focused, working. "Clear," Daniel muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Victor followed behind, slower, his expression tightening as he took in the scene. "Yeah," he said under his breath, "this is him." Daniel didn't respond, because he wasn't looking at the living room anymore. He was looking for something else. It didn't take long. The hallway was narrow, the walls marked with scratches and dents that didn't belong to normal living, and at the far end, a door stood slightly different from the others, heavier, reinforced, wrong. Daniel approached it slowly, every step deliberate, Rex suddenly stopping beside him, a low growl forming deep in his chest, not aggressive but warning, like a signal that something here mattered more than anything else in the house. Daniel's hand moved to the knob. It didn't turn. He stepped back once, then drove his shoulder into it. The wood cracked, the lock gave, and the door swung open with a sharp, violent sound that echoed down the hallway. The room inside was small, too small. A single bed pushed against the wall, thin mattress, no sheets. A dresser with one drawer hanging open, no television, no phone, no personal belongings that suggested comfort, only survival. The window, Daniel's eyes moved to it instantly, was nailed shut from the outside, boards hammered across it in a way that wasn't meant to keep anything out, but to keep someone in. His breathing stopped for a second. Rex stepped inside slowly, nose sweeping the room, then stopping near the bed, sitting down with a quiet, controlled stillness that meant something had been confirmed. "She was here," Daniel said. Victor stood in the doorway, his face pale now, whatever distance he had kept before collapsing under the reality of what this place had been. Jesus. Daniel didn't move, because on the dresser, half hidden beneath dust and a cracked lamp, there was something else. A notebook, old, worn. He reached for it carefully, like it might break in his hands, and opened it. The handwriting was familiar immediately, neat, steady, even when the lines wavered slightly as if written through pain. November 3rd. He locked the door again today, said it was for my safety. I don't argue anymore. It only makes it worse. Daniel swallowed. His eyes moved faster now. January 14th. I heard a car outside tonight. For a moment, I thought it might be Daniel. I stood at the door for a long time, but I couldn't open it. I don't know if he would recognize me anymore. Daniel's hand tightened around the page. His chest felt tight now, not from anger, but from something deeper, something heavier. March 2nd. I found his address again, Duluth. I remember it. I've remembered it for years. I drove there once, parked across the street from his garage. I saw him through the window. He looked strong, happy maybe. I didn't go in. I didn't want to ruin that. Daniel closed his eyes for a second, just one, because the image hit too clearly. Her sitting in a car, watching from a distance, choosing not to step out, choosing not to knock, because of him. He turned the page. July 18th. I think I'm going to die here. He's getting worse. I can feel it. If I can get out, if I can just make it to Daniel, maybe he won't turn me away. Daniel exhaled slowly, but it didn't release anything, because nothing could. She knew, he said quietly. Victor frowned. Knew what? Where I was. Silence filled the room again, heavier than before. Rex stood up suddenly, ears snapping forward, nose lifting toward the doorway, then turning sharply toward the back of the house. His body shifted instantly from stillness to motion, tail stiff, muscles engaged, moving with purpose now, not searching, but tracking. Daniel's head snapped up. What is it, boy? Rex didn't bark. He moved, fast. Daniel followed immediately, the journal still in his hand, boots pounding against the hallway floor as Rex pushed through the back door into the yard, nose low, then high, then forward again, locking onto something invisible to anyone else. The yard itself was overgrown, patches of dead grass and dirt, a rusted fence leaning at one corner, but Rex moved through it like it was a map already drawn in his mind. He's got a scent, Victor said, catching up behind them. Daniel nodded once. Yeah. Rex stopped near the fence, then jumped it in a single motion, landing clean on the other side and continuing forward without hesitation. Daniel didn't slow down, because now this wasn't just about the past anymore. This was movement. This was direction. This was the first real lead. He vaulted the fence after the dog, boots hitting the ground hard, eyes locked on Rex's back as the canine pushed forward into the darkness beyond the property line, following a trail only he could see. Daniel's voice came out low, controlled, but there was something new in it now. Find him. Rex didn't look back. He didn't need to, because he already had. The deeper Daniel Brooks pushed into Superior National Forest, the more the world seemed to fall away behind him. The road disappearing into dirt, then into broken ground, then into nothing but trees and silence. And the cold here was different from the city. It wasn't sharp, it was heavy, like it settled into your lungs and stayed there. Pine branches blocked most of the sky, turning the late afternoon into something closer to dusk, and every step Daniel took felt deliberate, controlled, driven by something deeper than anger, something colder, more precise. Rex moved ahead of him with absolute certainty, the 5-year-old German shepherd no longer searching but tracking, his nose locked onto a scent that had now become a line through the forest, a path only he could see. And Daniel followed without hesitation, because in all the years they had worked together, Rex had never once led him the wrong way. Victor Kane stayed close but silent, his usual sarcasm gone, replaced by a tight awareness that came from knowing exactly what kind of man Logan Pierce had become. While somewhere behind them, distant enough to not interfere, Detective Hensley and his team moved slower, more cautious, bound by rules that Daniel had already left behind the moment he stepped into the woods. This wasn't a chase anymore. It was a conclusion. Rex slowed first. It was subtle, almost nothing, but Daniel felt it immediately. His body adjusted, his breathing steadying, his eyes lifting through the trees, and then he saw it. The lookout tower stood above the forest like something forgotten, tall and skeletal, its wooden structure warped by time, its stairs exposed, spiraling upward into a small box at the top that looked barely capable of holding together. Beneath it, tucked into shadow, sat a truck. Logan's truck. Daniel stopped, just for a second. Then he moved forward. Logan! His voice carried farther than it should have, cutting through the trees, sharp and controlled. Silence answered him. Then a shift, movement at the top of the tower. A figure stepped into view slowly, one hand gripping the railing, and even from a distance, Daniel could see the difference between what Logan had been and what he had become. The man standing above him was still physically strong, tall, broad, heavy in the shoulders, but everything else had deteriorated, worn down by something internal. His hair was long, uneven, falling into his face, his beard thick but unkempt, streaked with gray, his skin pale under the cold light, and his eyes didn't settle. They flickered, restless, like a man who had been running too long inside his own head. "So you finally came," Logan called down, his voice rough, strained, but carrying something else beneath it. Relief, maybe, buried under layers of anger. Daniel stepped closer to the base of the tower, Rex now at his side, not ahead, not behind, but exactly where he needed to be. "I'm here." Logan let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, shaking his head as if the moment itself didn't feel real. "She always said you would be, said no matter how long it took, you'd come back." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's alive." That hit. Daniel saw it clearly this time. The way Logan's posture shifted, the way his grip on the railing tightened before loosening again, the way his breathing changed. "Alive," Logan repeated, quieter now. "Barely," Daniel said, "because of you." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full, thick with everything that hadn't been said for years. Then Logan moved, slowly descending the stairs, each step creaking under his weight until he reached the ground, stopping just far enough away to keep distance, but close enough that neither of them could pretend this wasn't real. Up close, the damage was undeniable. Logan's face wasn't just worn, it was fractured in a way that couldn't be seen physically, something in his expression constantly shifting between anger, guilt, and something like exhaustion. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," Logan said, then immediately shook his head. "No, that's not true. I knew. I just didn't stop." Daniel didn't speak. He let it come. "You ever live with something you can't fix?" Logan asked suddenly, his voice rising, cracking under pressure. "Something that follows you every second until it's all you are." Daniel's answer came quietly. "Yeah." Logan let out a sharp laugh. "Of course you do, Marine, the one who made it out, the one she never stopped talking about." Daniel stepped forward, slow, controlled. "Don't twist this." But Logan was already past that. His hand moved fast, pulling a gun from his jacket, raising it, not perfectly steady, but enough. Behind them, Victor shifted. Somewhere in the trees, Hensley shouted, but it didn't matter, because Rex stepped forward, not attacking, not barking, just placing himself between them. His body was rigid, his stance solid, ears forward, eyes locked, not on the gun, not on fear, but on control. He wasn't choosing a target, he was holding a line. Logan's hand trembled. "You think I wanted this?" Logan said, voice breaking now. "Your father saved mine. Do you know what that does to someone? Growing up knowing your life cost someone else theirs?" Daniel's voice stayed low. "That's not how it works." "Tell that to his grave," Logan snapped. "Tell that to the man who died because my father made a mistake." There it was, the truth beneath everything. "My mother took me in," Logan continued, quieter now, but more dangerous. "Said it was the right thing to do, said it was honor, said I could be better." His grip tightened, and I believed her. Daniel didn't interrupt. "But I wasn't you," Logan said. "I watched her choose you, even when you were gone, even when you didn't call. You were still her son. I was just the debt." Rex didn't move. Daniel slowly raised his hand, not toward a weapon, but open, steady. "It was never about choosing," Daniel said. "She didn't replace me with you. She tried to save you." Logan shook his head violently. "No, she tried to fix something broken." His voice cracked. "And when she couldn't, she went back to you." The gun lifted slightly. Time slowed. Daniel's mind flashed, not to the present, but to the image burned into him from that journal. His mother, sitting in a car, watching him, not knocking, driving away, because she thought she didn't deserve to be let back in. Daniel exhaled slowly. Then he did the one thing that changed everything. "You're right," he said quietly. Logan froze. "I wasn't there," Daniel continued. 17 years. That's on me." The forest went still. "But she still believed in you," Daniel said. Logan's hand shook harder now. "I don't deserve that." "No," Daniel said. "You don't." A pause. "But she gave it anyway." Rex stepped forward slightly. Daniel's voice dropped. "Put it down." Logan's breathing broke, uneven now, fast, his shoulders rising and falling as whatever had been holding him together started to collapse. "I can't fix it," he whispered. "No," Daniel said, "but you can stop." The gun wavered, then dropped. Logan's knees followed. He didn't fight it. He didn't run. He just collapsed there, everything inside him finally breaking at once. Rex stepped back. Daniel moved forward, not as a Marine, not as a man seeking revenge, but as a son who had made a promise. "It's over," he said, and for the first time, it truly was. The courtroom felt smaller than it should have been, not because of its size, but because of the weight inside it, a quiet pressure that settled over every person present as if the truth itself had taken physical form. And Daniel Brooks sat rigid in the front row, his broad shoulders squared, his posture still carrying the discipline of a former Marine even now, though his hands, scarred, strong, once steady under fire, rested tightly clasped together as if holding something fragile he could not afford to lose again. Across the room, Logan Pierce stood in restraints, thinner than before, his once imposing frame reduced by weeks in custody, his beard uneven and unkempt, his eyes hollow with exhaustion rather than defiance. A man who had already collapsed long before the sentence would make it official. And when the judge began to read the charges, aggravated assault, unlawful imprisonment, prolonged abuse, the words did not echo loudly, yet they carried enough weight to press down on everyone listening. Daniel did not look at Logan. He looked at his mother. Dorothy Brooks sat beside him, her posture fragile but upright, silver hair neatly combed despite the faint tremor in her hands, her face marked not only by healing bruises, but by something deeper, endurance, the kind that came from surviving what should have broken her. And when the judge paused to ask if she wished to speak, Daniel turned slightly, unsure if she would stand. She did. Slowly, carefully, with the help of a wooden cane, Dorothy moved to the front, and her voice, when it came, was softer than anyone expected, yet steady in a way that commanded silence. "I am not here to ask for forgiveness," she said, each word measured, deliberate. "What was done to me cannot be undone." A pause. No one moved. "But I am also not here to ask for hatred." Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, his gaze fixed on her, trying to understand, trying to follow something that did not come naturally to him anymore. "He needs help," she continued, her eyes briefly shifting toward Logan, who could not meet her gaze. "Real help, not excuses, not escape, treatment. If he is to spend years in prison, then let those years change something. Otherwise, nothing we have suffered will mean anything." The courtroom remained silent long after she finished, and when the judge finally spoke again, the sentence came with finality. 15 years in state prison, mandatory psychiatric treatment, substance abuse rehabilitation, no possibility of early release without completion. And as the gavel struck, it sounded less like punishment and more like the closing of something that had been open for far too long. Daniel exhaled slowly, not relief, not satisfaction, just a quiet release of tension he had been carrying since the night his mother collapsed in his garage. Outside, the cold air hit harder than expected, sharp and real, and for a moment neither of them spoke as they walked toward the truck, Rex moving beside them with his usual controlled calm, his amber eyes scanning the surroundings, though the danger was gone now, replaced by something quieter, something heavier. That night, the garage felt different. It had always been Daniel's refuge, a place of routine and silence where engines made more sense than people, where problems could be taken apart and fixed piece by piece, but now the air carried something else, something unfinished, and as Dorothy rested inside the small house connected to it, Daniel remained alone among the tools, sitting on a worn stool with grease still on his hands, staring at nothing in particular. Rex lay nearby, watching him, not moving, not interrupting, just present in the way only a trained K-9 could be, aware, patient, understanding more than most humans ever could. Daniel leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees, his voice low when he finally spoke. "I should have come back." No one answered. "I should have checked on her, called, anything." His throat tightened, the words heavier now that they were real, spoken aloud instead of buried under years of silence. "I left," he continued quieter. "I told myself I had a reason, that I couldn't accept what she did, that it was easier this way." A long pause stretched out, filled only by the faint ticking of cooling metal somewhere in the garage. "But I left her alone." The words landed differently, not anger, not justification, just truth. From the doorway, Dorothy's voice came, soft but clear enough to stop him. "You didn't leave me." Daniel turned sharply, surprised to see her standing there, one hand resting lightly against the frame for support, her expression calm in a way that made everything inside him feel louder by contrast. "I did," he said, his voice rougher now. 17 years, Mom. That's not distance, that's abandonment." She stepped closer, slow but steady, her gaze never leaving his. "You were hurt," she said simply. "That doesn't excuse it." "No," she agreed, a faint smile touching her lips, not dismissive, just understanding. "But it explains it." Daniel shook his head slightly, frustration building, not at her but at himself. "If I had come back sooner, if I had checked on you, maybe none of this would have happened." For a moment she said nothing, then reached out, placing her hand gently over his, her grip surprisingly firm despite everything she had endured. "You came back when I needed you most." Daniel looked at her, searching for doubt, for regret, for anything that might match what he felt inside, but there was none. "You found me," she continued softly. "When I couldn't save myself anymore, you were there." Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't empty. Daniel swallowed hard, his shoulders lowering slightly as something inside him shifted, not erased, not forgiven, but acknowledged. "I can't get those years back," he said. "No," she replied gently. "Neither can I." Another pause. "But we still have this one." The words lingered, simple, undeniable. Daniel nodded once, slowly, as if accepting something he had been resisting for a long time, and when he looked around the garage again, it no longer felt like a place to hide. It felt like something else. A beginning. The next morning, the garage door was open. Cold air drifted in, carrying the quiet sounds of the street beyond, and Daniel stood there for a moment, hands in his pockets, watching the empty space outside as if expecting something, or someone, to appear, while Rex sat beside him, calm and alert, his presence steady as always. Dorothy moved behind him, slower now but stronger than before, her steps measured yet certain, and when she stopped beside him, she followed his gaze outward. "You're leaving it open?" she asked. Daniel nodded slightly. "Yeah." "For what?" He took a breath, then answered simply, "So no one has to stand outside, wondering if they're allowed to come in." Dorothy smiled faintly, not wide, not dramatic, just enough to show she understood exactly what he meant. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel Brooks did not feel like he was waiting for something to end. He felt like he had chosen to stay. Sometimes, miracles don't come as sudden flashes of light. They arrive quietly, in the moment someone finds the strength to forgive, to return, to open a door that has been closed for years. God doesn't always erase the pain we've been through, but He gives us the chance to heal, to make things right, and to become better than we were yesterday. In our everyday lives, we all carry regrets, missed chances, and words we wish we had said sooner. But as long as we are still here, it is never too late to come back, to choose love, and to choose what is right. If this story touched your heart, take a moment today to reach out to someone you love, because sometimes that simple act can be the miracle they've been waiting for. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about courage, redemption, and second chances. Your support helps these stories reach more people who might need them. And wherever you are watching from, may God bless you, protect you, and guide you through every challenge in your life.